Man, I loved Space Jam. Space Jam. In the past, the Dutch Eredivise has been a breeding ground for many of Europe's top talents, and with Ajax's amazing run in the Champions League, they have shed more light inadvertently on everything that the Eredivisie has to offer. So with a big summer ahead and the bar being set at the 75 million euros Frenkie de Jong is moving to Barcelona for, and with Matthijs Ligt probably on his way out as well, also to Barcelona, I'm going to look at 10 players who could also be on their way out of the Eredivisie, the top level of Dutch football. Starting off with an Ajax player, of course there are going to be a few on this list, and it's the much sought after fullback Nicolas Tagliafico. Now, even though he just joined in January 2018, over the last 18 months he's shown that he is more than capable of performing at Europe's highest level, with some fantastic games against the likes of Real Madrid this season. The fullback's got great energy, work rate and crossing ability, making him perfect for the modern game, and such skills have seen him draw comparisons to his fellow countryman and Argentinian legend Javier Zanetti. That's not exactly a bad comparison to have, and it looks like some of Europe's biggest teams are buying into it. Both Real Madrid and Arsenal are said to be interested in the player, and it looks like he'll be on the move because he and his agent have both said that they're interested in moving on and testing themselves at a higher level in the summer. Currently he's worth around 25 to 28 million pounds, so it won't even be that much if a big club wants to come in and nab him. Next up, and to one of two PSV wingers on this list, and both of them have been scouted numerous times during the course of the season. One of them is Steven Bergwijn, and with 14 goals and 12 assists this season, it's clear to see why he's so highly rated, and at 21 years old it looks like he has a bright future ahead of him. A word of warning though, it doesn't always work out when signing a winger from the Dutch division. Now I say this because the last big winger that PSV sold was Memphis Depay, and we all know how that turned out at Manchester United. One poor season later and he was shipped off to Ligue 1. I've no doubt that Steven Bergwijn is a fantastic talent, but we'll have to wait to see how this one plays out in the future. And if PSV do end up selling Bergwijn, well, they'll be far less likely to go and sell one of their other star attackers in Irving Lozano. The Mexican player, more affectionately known as Chucky, has been in brilliant form actually since the start of last season when he first joined PSV. His stock rose greatly again with some fantastic performances in the World Cup against Mexico, including a goal against Germany, and it looks like with 17 goals and 12 assists this season, it's no wonder why the likes of Inter Milan and Chelsea are both interested in his signature. Unfortunately, his season has come to a premature end with some ligament damage in his knee, so this may put a few teams off signing him at the moment. As mentioned before, he is still in his early 20s, so it's not like anyone's going to be in a rush to sign him. For PSV, this could be good news because they'll be able to keep hold of their best player. However, it may actually be bad news in the end, because if he doesn't quite reach the heights that he previously reached, they may not even be able to sell him for much money in the future. Of course, for Lozano as well, it'll be a pretty bad note on his career. I don't necessarily see that happening. I'm sure he'll make a full recovery and move to the top of European football. And talking of speedy, dangerous attackers, David Neres is an absolute must-have for most teams this summer. The Ajax winger has been in sensational form, so much so that he's managed to make his Brazilian national team debut this season. That's not an easy task when you look at the quality of players who are ahead of him in the national team. Both Liverpool and PSG are said to be interested in signing him in the summer, and with his incredible dribbling, wonderful speed and attacking threat, there pretty much isn't a team in Europe who wouldn't benefit from having him in the squad. Can you imagine if you went to Anfield? You'd have him on one side, Sadio Mane on the other, and Firmino and Salah up top. That's a pretty ridiculous attack to contend with, especially if they go ahead and win the title this season as well. They'll be one of the most feared in Europe. Next up though, let's take a brief pause from all of the stars from Ajax and PSV. Now of course there are going to be a load of players from those teams in there because those are the two best teams in their division. They're both fighting for the title and both of their sets of players have had fantastic years. However, one player that's flown slightly under the radar because of this is Heerenveen's Michel. The attacking midfielder has contributed an unbelievable 16 goals and 6 assists this season, which is made even more impressive by the fact that Heerenveen are languishing in mid-table in 11th. With his versatility across the front line, his excellent technique with both feet, it's exactly what you've come to expect with a Dutch attacking player. With him not playing for one of the biggest teams in the country or in any European competition, you can hardly see him going for any more than 15 million, which with the money that the likes of England, Spanish and some Italian teams have got to spare is an absolute snip. Personally, I'd love to see him go to the Championship in England. This is the breeding ground for top talents where recently the likes of Dele Alli, Jack Grealish and James Maddison have all blossomed into fantastic players. It looks like Grealish will be on the move to the Premier League this summer to join the other two, and if Michel can potentially take his place in any team in the Championship, well, I think he'd be making a massive step up in his career. So next up, and let's throw in a defensive player because there's always an abundance of attacking players. However, this isn't just any right back. This is the right back who's managed to fight his way into becoming first choice for PSV and first choice for the Dutch national national team after some stellar performances in the UEFA Nations League. In Denzel Dumfries, not only will a potential new club be getting a player with an absolutely awesome name, but they'll also be getting a quick, strong, brilliant fullback who can stop any attacking winger in their path. He can also chip in with a goal and assist or two throughout the season as well. Going forward as well, his pass success rate has been over 80% this season, which is pretty phenomenal, and he's also put in some fantastic performances in the Champions League against the likes of Spurs, Inter Milan and Barcelona, so he's definitely at home against the big boys too. Next up, and we move back to Ajax with a player who could have so easily moved on last summer had a move to Roma not fallen through. But with 21 assists and 20 goals this season, Hakim Ziyech is surely on the top of many teams' transfer target lists this summer. Now, as if his talent wasn't already enough to make clubs turn their head, news that he's got a release clause of around £25 million is surely enough for them all to queue up literally outside of his house to try and bring him to their club. Alongside this and ridiculous stat incoming, he's also been involved in 100 goals since joining Ajax in 130 games. This is a combined of 51 assists and 49 goals, which is just unbelievable regardless of what you think of the league or how dominant Ajax are. So next up onto the list, and I swear it's the last Ajax player. In fact, I could have done a top 10 just based on Ajax players because they've got that many good players who are probably going to be scouted in the summer. I haven't put Matthijs de Ligt in on this list because he's probably definitely going, and he's definitely going to be the most high-profile departure from the Eredivisie this summer. But even alongside this, they could have had Kasper Dolberg, Andre Onana and Dusan Tadic as all potential leavers. But I've decided to go for a few players that are a little less unknown. Now, I'm not saying Donny van der Beek is unknown, far from it. He played fantastic in the semi-finals of the Champions League. But with so much focus on what Frenkie de Jong is doing this season, especially after his move to Barcelona, you'd be unwise to ignore the skills that van der Beek has. The way he moves around the pitch is absolutely astonishing. If Frenkie de Jong is the next Busquets, then Donny van der Beek could probably be the next Andres Iniesta. As I mentioned before, the way he moves around the attacking third is ridiculous. He's got the composure on the ball, he's got brilliant technique, he can play with both feet, and he's got one hell of a footballing brain. Of course, his performances in recent weeks have made his stocks rise absolutely ridiculously, and if you put him under the tutelage of someone brilliant like Pep Guardiola, I've no doubt that he could turn into an absolute world beater in the years to come. So away from the top clubs and back to Heerenveen, and the more I think about it, the more it is ridiculous that they are sitting in 11th position with two fantastic attackers. Now, we've already spoken about Michel contributing this season, but also we've got Sam Lammers. Now, he is actually on loan from PSV, meaning that if they do sell the likes of Bergwijn and Lozano in the summer, they'll probably have him back in the first team. However, if they don't, he could be available for a few clubs to pick up on the cheap. Now, he has also contributed 15 goals and 5 this season, meaning that between him and Vlap, they've contributed 31 goals and 11 assists this season alone. Again, how on earth are they in 11th? Maybe it's something to do with the Heerenveen defence. As to where Sam Lammers could actually move to, well, it's been reported that Rafa Benitez has sent his Newcastle scouts to watch him on more than a few occasions this season. If there's a team that aren't willing to spend much money on players, Newcastle are definitely one of them. And if there's a player that's not going to cost too much compared to the rest of them on this list, well, it's probably going to be Sam Lammers. Again, if he moves back to PSV and they haven't sold anyone, he won't be playing as regularly. And for someone like him to develop his potential, he needs to be playing football matches. I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen at Newcastle, but it looks more than likely, especially with some of the poor starters in their squad. Now, lastly, we have a left back who's absolutely flying in the Eredivisie and making sure that it was not a mistake to leave Manchester City last season, although they could probably do with him back right now. Now, upon joining Manchester City as a 17-year-old back in 2014, Spaniard Angelino actually explained the decision to reject the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid, saying that he wanted to learn English in case a career in football didn't quite work out for him. Well, along with a few loan spells and a very mature head clearly on his shoulders, things have worked out pretty well. He left Manchester City last summer in a deal which saw him head to PSV, and since then he's had an unbelievable season at left back. So far this season, the 22-year-old has managed 9 assists bombing up and down that left wing, which is almost as good as the best left back in the Premier League, Andy Robertson, who currently has 11. As for whether he'll move or not, well, I did mention that he only moved to PSV from Manchester City last summer. However, if a big European club comes calling, he may find it a too good an opportunity to turn down. So there you have it, 10 talented players who could potentially be leaving the Eredivisie in the summer. My question to you guys is, though, where do you think they should be moving to? Should they all be staying with their Dutch clubs and we could see a rise in the division, or are they going to find it too difficult to turn down a move to the likes of Barcelona, Man City, Real Madrid, Juventus, Bayern Munich, and whoever else? Of course, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and also hit the like button whilst you guys are down there. But from me, until next time, that's all, so I'll see you guys later.